Inspiring voices, building worlds. The Ampliverse.
Welcome to Harry Potter and the Anxious Millennials, a show where we delve week by week into each chapter of the Harry Potter series. Ari, welcome to the show, here today to talk about Harry Potter. How are you doing?
Thank you. Ask me another day.
You're triggered by Dolores,
yeah, I was gonna
Umbridge,
say,
and Centaurs.
I wish it was just that. No, I am my lovely Auntie Flo is coming in 2 days, and folks that also have menstrual cycles, you know that feeling, like the 2 days before, you're just like,
do you track?
Oh yeah, girl. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And I said to Michael today, you can include all of this on the podcast. I said, I bet you anything I'm going to start my period in 2 days. And I got out my phone and I looked and it was 2 days. And I said, I knew it. I can tell now. I can always tell, like, when it's actually weird. This is the first time, because right before you start your period, you're in, or your menstruation cycle, you're in the luteal phase. And so that's typically when you'll like feel more hungry. It's literally because you're burning more calories. Like, it's your body actually needs more food at that time just because it's like going through everything so quickly. But this time I was like, I haven't been super hungry. And so I wonder if that's a part of something is slightly different this time around. And that's why my like PMS is so bad. But yeah, it's like one of those where like if someone like breathes a little too loudly, you're like, it's that bad. Like, I'm like, I should not be around anyone right now.
Yeah.
So poor Michael. God bless Michael.
Pobre Michael. This week we were at chapter 33 called Fight and Flight.
Yeah, you're right.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're right. It's because typically you would say fight or flight, but it's both.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Fight and flight.
Yeah. Yes.
Did
both.
you know there's 4?
Oh yeah, girl. I know all about.
So
Do you know what the other two are?
Fight, flight, or freeze, but I didn't know. I just learned about fawn or flirt.
Yep, freeze or fawn. Yep. Mm-hmm. You know why I know that? Because I am a freeze or a fawn. Like, I typically will. I think I do freeze more, but I think sadly, I think a lot of women will fawn, just in terms of a survival instinct, because we tend to be more petite.
Yeah.
In certain situations, and that would be your instinct would always kind of be to like fawn or freeze. But then that's like, do you know what yours is? Do you know what your response is? Are you a
I think I'm a freeze. I'm either a freeze or a flight. Yeah.
I have a theory, like Midwesterners.
I'm not fight.
I probably could be fight if it's someone that I feel like comfortable enough with to fight, if that makes sense. Like argue with, you know what I mean?
Sure.
Like if you feel comfortable with someone, you would feel comfortable enough to kind of argue with them, but definitely not a fight either. No. You know who is?
Who?
Minyungi. Do you remember that episode where they were with all the zombies and he was like,
yeah. Ari, what happens in this chapter?
In this chapter, Hermione leads Umbridge into the Forbidden Forest, and things happen in the forest.
Chaos
A lot goes down.
Yeah.
Yeah. Chaos ensues in said forest.
Yeah.
So when they're leaving the castle, Harry has absolutely no idea where Hermione's going, which I was like, okay, I guess if you're walking through the castle, fair enough. But like, I feel like pretty quickly, wouldn't you realize she's going to go to the Forbidden Forest? I don't know. Like maybe
once they're outside,
maybe he's just too focused on Sirius, but I'm like, where else can you really go outside? Like, you can't go into the Black Lake. I guess you could go to Hogsmeade, but that's in the opposite direction, isn't it? Than like Hagrid's hut.
I believe so.
Anyway, I just was like, Harry, it took you a little bit longer to figure it out than I thought it would. Because I pretty quickly was like, even in the book the first time, was like, she's taking her to the Forbidden Forest. Like, I remember being like,
I thought they were like gonna go to Grop, like specifically go to Grop.
No,
but that's not what's happening. She's just being like, I'm loud in the forest.
Yeah, I did. When you said that, I almost was about to say, oh no, that's not actually what they do. But I was like, I'll just let him find out next week.
Because I remember that Grop comes into the story in this chapter.
Yes. Yeah.
But I didn't remember.
She's not seeking him out. Yeah.
Right. Because she wouldn't do that, because that would be bad, because then they'd be revealing Hagrid.
Yeah, exactly. So I just thought this note was like disgusting, but also funny. Harry notices that Umbridge is like so close behind them that he can hear her ragged breath.
Ew.
I know. I was like, ooh.
Not bleh. Ragged.
I know, yeah. Like her little like watery breath. Yeah, I know. That's why I was like. So at first, Umbridge is guessing that Hermione's taking them to Hagrid's hut. She's like, oh, it's in Hagrid's hut, is it? And then Hermione's like, no, he might have set it off. To which Umbridge literally says, yes, he would have done, the great half-breed oaf. But I actually think that Hermione kind of said it that way on purpose to play into exactly what Umbridge thinks. Like, it's like, she's so smart.
She's so
smart. Even though Dolores says that about Hagrid, which I want to just like deck her, because Harry was like tempted to like strangle her. I was like, same girl.
There's only one thing in this chapter that Hermione does where it's like,
I know,
you didn't think a step ahead on that one.
Yeah. So Hermione's like, it's in the Forbidden Forest, obviously, because we couldn't have students just like coming across it. And Umbridge is like, oh, of course it is. But then she's like a little hesitant because obviously they're going into the Forbidden Forest. And she's like, what, like 4'10"? So then she pushes Harry in front of her as a human shield. Yeah. Harry and Hermione's like, well, you'll go first. Or she says, well, you'll go first then. To which Harry's like, can we have your wand then if we're going to go first? And then she says, no, because the ministry puts more value on my life than yours. I don't know. Even with Harry Potter being like
Public
a joke.
Number one. Yeah.
Yeah. I still don't know if you're like, everyone would say your life is more important than the boy who lived. I don't really believe that.
I think she has delusions of grandeur.
She's she delulu.
But also she is fully like
Friedrich.
I don't know what.
He always sits other side. He always sits right there. Hi, Fried.
He got a haircut.
Hi, Fried. He's so cute.
She like, Harry asks for the wand and she says that, right? She could have just been like, I'm not stupid enough to give you my wand, you moron.
Yeah, I know. She just can't help herself, though. She really can't help herself.
Yeah.
So then as they're getting
won.
Yeah. So as they're getting deeper and deeper into the forest, Harry is remembering that this was actually the way that him and Ron, because Hagrid wasn't with them, the way that him and Ron took to Aragog's den. And so he's like, are you sure this is the right way, Hermione? To which Hermione's like, yeah, I know exactly where I'm going. This is where I want to go. And then he's like, can you please stop yelling? You're shouting. And I need you to like be quiet because I don't really want to be overheard. And she's like, oh no, I want them to hear us. Everyone needs to know that we're here. We're right here. And so then Harry's like, oh, okay. I kind of see what's happening in this moment, right as an arrow flies through the air and lands above Hermione's head. And then she looks very pleased, even though she almost just got taken out by an arrow, but I mean, okay. Right. And so then Umbridge literally pushes Harry in front of her, like actually as a human shield this time. Yeah. And he pulls out of her grasp. So they're surrounded by the centaurs, obviously, because we probably could have deduced that from just the arrow from us going in with like
Legolas
Harry and Ron
has come into the fold.
And it's Legolas and Gimli and Aragorn. So the centaurs have surrounded them. This was Hermione's plan all along, so she's very pleased. McGonagall asks who Umbridge is, and she's like, I'm the senior undersecretary to the Minister of Magic. I'm also High Inquisitor of Hogwarts, and I'm the headmistress. And I was like, girl, they don't care. Actually, you just made this worse for yourself because you just said that you work for the ministry, which is exactly what they latched onto. Yes. They were like, oh, you work for the ministry, huh? And then she was like, yeah, so you better watch out, you half-breeds. And I was like, girl.
Being Delulu, it's the Salulu.
Delusional. Oh, I was like, it is not the Salulu in this chapter.
No, not for her.
I was like, girl, not for her.
It's Hermione's. It's Hermione's Salulu.
Yeah, it's Hermione's Salulu. So then she's like, she calls them half-breeds, which obviously they're like, what did you call us? I'm sorry, excuse me. And then she's like, yeah, you better watch it because any creature or any animal with near human-like intelligence, and they're like, I'm sorry, near human? We're way smarter than you. They're like, we consider that a great insult, actually, because we do not associate with the likes of you. And then they're like, what are you doing in our forest? To which she responds by saying, this isn't your forest. You're only here because the ministry allows you to be. I just was like,
you know
Umbridge.
What this is? They're the allegory for like native peoples.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, definitely. Yeah. Indigenous people. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And so I was like, girl, Miss Ma'am, you need to stop. It is, I mean, it's definitely, and then the way that she doesn't call them savages, but basically it's like essentially she's calling them savages as well. Yeah. And it just, obviously I understand Umbridge's whole gig is that like, this is how she thinks, but I'm like, you are obviously an idiot because like, this was obviously going to happen to you. Do you understand? Do you know what I'm saying? Like, I'm just like, you cannot help yourself.
You can't help yourself. This is the thing that I push back on with this character is like, okay, Dolores Umbridge is a person who has gotten pretty far in genuinely in the Ministry of Magic. Like she's ascended the ranks at the ministry. She's basically
by being
working,
a pick-me.
Right. But it's like everything we see at Hogwarts, she's very nefarious, but she's not like, she can't help herself. So I wonder if like, it almost like contradicts, how would you be able to get this far at the ministry if you keep like self-sabotaging? Like everything she's doing is like, you keep getting in your own way of like, she could win. She could win the situation, but she can't help herself.
Yeah.
She has no like self-control, truly.
Yeah.
So I almost wonder like, is it that in the ministry, because she's constantly supervised by someone else, that she's had to be more cognizant of like being watched as well? But like here, because she's at Hogwarts and no one is like watching her in the same way, that's why she's kind of like let her self-control wander.
And I think because she is undersecretary to the minister and like High Inquisitor and headmistress, there's a part of her that genuinely thinks she's untouchable. Yeah. Even by the centaurs. Like, but I'm like, but you're here by yourself. So that's just like situational awareness to realize that you're outnumbered. Speaking of freeze. Yeah. Girl, just freeze. Freeze and fawn, girl.
Yeah. Be like, I too am a student. I'm a foal as well. Please don't hurt me.
Yeah, she's short enough.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I don't know. There was a bit of, I was like, I'm sorry, she deserves what she gets in the sense of like, she's just a horrible person anyway. But I was like, the way you handled this whole situation, yeah, you were obviously going to get carried off by Bane specifically, the one that hates humans the most.
Yeah.
So, when she makes the comment about the ministry they're only there because the ministry allows them to be there, an arrow almost flies into her skull. And then she calls them half-breeds again. And then like says like uncontrolled animals or something like that. Then performs the Incarcerous charm, I believe on Bane. Is it on Bane or on?
I don't know if it was a specific one.
Or just
I thought it was just like on
one
of
the closest to her.
Yeah.
Okay.
The one who shot the arrow, I think.
Oh, no. She pointed her wand at McGonagall. Yeah, she's trying to take out their leader, girl. She's just coming for their leader right off the bat. She gets carried. They're very unhappy about this, that she tries to use magic on them. And then Bane grabs her and carries her off into the distance. All the while she's yelling like, "You can't do this! I'm the senior undersecretary to the Minister of Magic."
I do like the way it's written where Harry and Hermione like just flop down into the grass.
Yes.
So they can't see anything. They can hear stuff going on. And then he like looks up to watch her like get carried off.
Get carried off, yeah.
It's a clever writing trick to not have to write all that fucking action.
Yeah. We don't need to go like too into detail about this, but what do you think happened to her, Adam?
Okay, we don't get a resolution, do we, in this book?
No, she just comes back and she's like very like jumpy. What do you think they did? I imagine like, do you think they just like threw her around like a sack of potatoes or tied her up to a tree and then like had like a bonfire around her? Because I don't think they did anything like horror. I think they just like scared her. But
I mean, it doesn't. Okay,
I'm like,
it's weird because there's two ways to read it. Either the arrows that nearly hit her were purposefully just to scare her. They were shot. They missed on purpose, or they were genuinely trying to kill her and just shot like they missed. If we're going the kinder route,
I think it's like an intimidation tactic that they're like, I'm going to startle you full, like knowing well and good, I could actually hit you with an arrow if I wanted to.
Yes, but we've also heard that they were going to like try to kill Firenze for trying.
Yeah.
For like, so it's not with. They are capable of.
Yeah.
Much more. So I don't know. I mean, in like the worst part of my brain, they definitely like do stuff to her, and it's not great. But like, I also don't think that. I don't think J.K. Rowling would write that, even though she's a psychopath. I don't think she would write that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But I don't know. But then, like, what did they do? Like, I guess, yeah, they could have just, like, they could have tortured
Scared
her, I
the
guess.
shit out of her.
But I don't even know, like, in what manner?
Yeah.
But I also don't know what their magic is either, because they have to have some kind of magic that's just centaur magic, I'm sure. Mm-hmm. And I don't know what that is either. Maybe they're, like... fully, they can like show her images in her mind, like they can fully like mind games.
Maybe they like showed her what her demise could be or something like that, like a mental torture.
They were like, oh, we read the stars, we know the date you're gonna die.
Yeah I like that. I like that idea.
Girl, it's 2 weeks from now.
So after Umbridge has been carried away, other centaurs lift up Harry and Hermione, and they're like, okay, well, what are we going to do with them? And then once again, I did want to say, what's his name? McGonagall. No, there was someone else that was there from the previous book.
George.
This is going to become the theme. I can already tell.
I didn't even think of the fact that there is a George.
Ronan,
yes.
Ronan from the first book. He's still kicking. He's still there. But that's interesting, though, because Ronan used to be the leader, and he's gotten voted out, and it's McGonagall now. So, yeah, sorry. So Ronan's still like, well, they're young, and we don't hurt foals. So, but then they're like, no, first off, this one's nearing manhood. And I was like, no. He isn't.
No, just read the
not
book.
maturity-wise, he is not. And so then this is where Hermione messes up. And Hermione's like, no, please, we don't think like her. We think very differently than her, actually.
Okay, I'm on her side. Indicate when the moment that I switch sides.
Yep. And then she's like, no, we don't think like her. We're very different than her. We actually came here because we were hoping that you could actually like help us with her, get rid of her for us. To which Harry is like, oh, you said the wrong thing, girl. Yeah, he's like, oh no. And then they're like, oh, interesting. So you thought that we would just do your bidding, huh? And she's like, no, that's not what I meant. I didn't mean that. I just meant that we hoped that, you would just kind of like help us out. And then they're like, oh, okay, so you're going to go back to the school and tell everyone that we just like helped out these humans that came into our forest and assumed we would help them. And Harry's like, we're not going to say anything like that. First off, no. And then Hermione, actually this moment was like really moving. Hermione is actually crying at this point, and she says, yeah, you said you didn't hurt the innocent. We haven't hurt you. We haven't used any magic against you. We just want to go back to school. Like, please let us go back to school. And it was just such a genuine plea in that moment.
Like true fear, yeah.
Yeah, and just, she's right. Like, they haven't hurt them at all. Yeah. They haven't hurt them at all. And I think it's Hermione is still trying to use logic, which is very Hermione, but it's coming from like an emotional pleading space. So it was it was just very, very her. I was like, this is exactly how I would expect Hermione to react in this moment. So they're like kind of just yelling over them, essentially being like, so they're saying things like, see, they already have inherited this like superiority complex, even though they're not adults. They should join the woman. We shouldn't spare them, like all this stuff. And then right at that moment, there is a crashing noise and Grop comes out of the trees. So Hermione, Grop has arrived. So Harry and Hermione are dropped to the ground because obviously the centaurs want to be able to defend themselves against Grop. So they've kind of had to make a choice in this moment that they're just going to drop Harry and Hermione. Yeah. Grop is the bigger priority at hand. And so then he squints down, looks at them as in everyone, because he doesn't really see Hermione and Harry at this point, and just yells, Hagger!
Okay, here's where I get bumped, Ari. I hate to tell you.
Oh, okay. Tell me.
Hagrid left yesterday.
Yeah, girl. He misses his brother. It's been
Do
a
we
whole
think that Hagrid
not 24
goes
hours,
every day? Because he doesn't say that they need to go every day.
No, I bet he goes every day.
Okay. All right. That's the only thing that I was like... He would already know that Hagrid's
He is a devoted older
gone.
brother. Yeah, he was sitting there. Hagrid probably brings him like some snacks and stuff. So he was sitting there and he was like, I'm hungry. I haven't had my breakfast. I haven't had my lunch.
Yeah.
It's dinner time.
Afternoon
Where's
tea?
Hagrid?
Yeah.
Yeah, afternoon tea. So Harry notices, this was something I thought was important to make a note of, Grop's feet are basically as long as Harry's entire body. So just to give some perspective on how big this giant is standing like feet from them.
Yeah, and Daniel Radcliffe's what, 5'2"?
5'5". I think he's 5'5". Maybe he's 5'8". I can't remember. So Megorian tells him, he basically like tells him to get lost. That's not what he says, but I just wrote, he tells him to get lost. He's not welcome among them, because I just thought it was funny that he was like, get out of here.
Go.
Get out of here. You're not welcome among us. Like he thought he was. It was like, you can't sit with us.
Yeah.
It's just funny to me. Like he doesn't understand you. So then at this moment, Grop notices Harry and Hermione, to which he's like, Hermione, where Hagger? And then Hermione says, I'm sorry, I don't know.
Girl,
I'm sorry,
don't
Grop,
ask me questions. I don't know anything.
And then he reaches for Harry and Hermione, probably Hermione again. And Hermione actually lets out a scream of terror at this moment and falls over because she's tripped over a tree branch. It says that Harry is Harry is fight, apparently.
Harry's fight.
His response is
that
fight.
doesn't shock me, yeah.
No, yeah, that makes sense to me, especially growing up with Dudley specifically.
Yeah.
And the fact that Hermione, I guess, that would indicate she's flight because she's gone to run away.
Yeah.
So Harry's getting ready to like punch this giant's hand, which I was like, I understand it's not a logical reaction in the moment, but it was a funny image to imagine Harry trying to like fight a hand. Yeah. Like I just was like, oh, okay. So then obviously one of the centaurs gets knocked over, which I don't know why, but it was a Snow White centaur. But for some reason, I imagined the centaur getting knocked over and it was like, like, I don't know why. Because it was just funny to me that it's just like one centaur gets knocked over, but then that's what all of them are like, oh, touched one of us, it's over now. Because that's what causes them to release all these arrows.
Yeah.
So Grop's face is peppered with about 50 arrows, and then pebble-sized droplets of blood fall onto Harry and Hermione, and they just run for it. So
Gross.
they go, it's not nice. So they go and they hide undercover in the trees. The centaurs are running for it as Grop is trying to grab them, which I was like, that does sound very scary, honestly.
Yeah.
And Hermione comments that was horrible and he might just kill them all. How awful. And Harry's like, I'm actually not that fussed because they were just going to carry us away with Umbridge. So
yeah.
Harry's not bothered by it. And then at that moment, Harry's scar gives another great throb. And then he kind of explodes a little bit because he's like, we're nowhere closer to helping Sirius. We're further away than we were in the first place. So he snaps at Hermione.
But he still never had an idea.
No,
he still never had an idea of how to get there. What are you talking about?
She points that out to him right away, too.
Yeah.
She's like, how did you think you were going to get to London that quickly?
You ding-dong?
Yeah. And he also kicked a tree in this moment. Like, I was just like, boy, you a mess.
Very, very white boy punching a wall energy.
Yes. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So Hermione's like, well, how did you expect to get to London anyway? To which the rest of the gang come out and they're like, yeah, we were wondering that same thing, actually. So
nowhere.
Yeah. Yeah. So Ron, Ginny, Luna, and Neville have appeared out of the trees. They were able to fend off the Inquisitorial squad. Ginny particularly had a shining moment because she took out Malfoy. I'm sorry, is Malfoy like that bright or that? I guess I just don't get the impression that he's that skilled. I don't think he's bad, but I just am like, I think Ginny could take Malfoy.
Well, in comparison to everybody else, he's probably the big boss of the room.
Out of those people in that room.
Yeah.
I mean, sure.
We don't know anything
Goyle
about
got like rocks for brains.
Right. We don't know anything about, what was his name? Wellingborough? No.
That's what Warrington Wellingborough. Wellingborough is Michael's hometown, by the way, y'all.
That is
That's
so
where that came
funny.
from. What was
Warrington.
his name? Wellingborough? Warrington, yes. That's so. I'm gonna have to tell Adam or Michael you said that. That's so funny. But yeah,
at first I was going to say Wellington, and then I was like, no, it's not Wellington.
That was closer
That's so
though, because
funny.
Warrington.
Right. Oh my God.
That's so funny. There probably is there's a Wellington, England somewhere here too, girl. So, but yeah, they've been able to fend off the Inquisitorial squad. I
don't like that they just like found them in the woods. You know?
Yeah, I
was
trying to think if there was.
Could
they have just overheard? Maybe. No, because the forest is like it dampens the sound. Doesn't it?
They walked so far. You know what I mean?
Yeah, so far into the forest.
That's the only thing that I was like, okay, I mean, that's convenient and fine, like whatever. Because I mean, they write that they saw them walk into the forest.
Yeah.
But like, even still, no one. How would you find? I don't know. It's fine. They have wands. It's fine.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, it would have made more sense if Harry and Hermione were walking. Oh, excuse me. If Harry and Hermione were walking back out.
Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, so they found them. They ask, I think Ron, I believe, asks Harry what he found out while he was in the fire. To which Harry says, I was right. I was right. He's not there. And sorry, don't you think they all just kind of believe him a little too fast? Like, this is where it's similar to when someone will just be like, oh, don't worry about it. I'm not a person that would just be like, oh, okay. Like, I'm still going to have some probing questions.
I'm trying to, the only thing I think I would do is I'd be like, well, like,
he wasn't there
I
at
want
all.
specifics.
Yeah.
But
like, give me a
also
bit more
know
detail.
That basically Harry did save Arthur's life. So with
so
that
maybe
information,
Ron
I
wouldn't-
probably would just be like, great. That's all I needed.
Right, that's true. Yeah. Yeah, the fact that it has happened before and it was confirmed would make you not question it. Yeah.
And that the whole
I
thing
agree with
before
that.
was like, if they hadn't gotten there in time, Arthur would have died. And it was
Yeah,
because
exactly.
Harry had
Yeah. So then, they're like, okay, well, we're going to have to figure out a way to get there. Like, we need to help him. And then Luna says, well, we'll fly, of course. Then Harry points out Ron's the only one with a broom, to which Ginny points out, no, I also have a broom. And they're
Did
like,
they just steal the school brooms?
I don't know. I mean,
know what
they're
I
too
mean?
far away. They're too far away from the school at this point. So that's why I think the Thestrals are like the immediate
Oh, sure.
optional option. But I don't know where those brooms are. Remember, we don't really know
Where's
where
the broom
rest of the
shed?
brooms are kept.
Where is the broom shed on campus?
Is there like a little stable? Like, so instead of horses, it's like a little broom
Or right next
stable, like
to
a tiny little, like a giant
pitch?
cupboard, basically. Yeah, we don't know.
We have no idea.
There. Harry says the only person that has a broom is Ron. Ginny says, I also have a broom. To which Ron says, no, you're not going. Then Ginny makes a point that she is actually older than Harry was when he faced Voldemort for the first time, which I was just like, Ginny is my girl. Ginny is my girl.
Book Ginny.
She is coming in with the facts. Love her. And then Neville makes a great point because he's like, okay, well, we are all in the DA and we want to help. Like, that was the whole reason that we were doing the DA, was in situations like this, we would be able to help and, like, you know, fight back against the evil of Lord Voldemort. So then Harry and Ron lock eyes, and Harry assumes that Ron is thinking the same thing he is, which is, out of anyone in the DA that they would
Why
like
did this
to have
even need
to go
to be
on a
said?
mission.
God.
I don't know. And I also,
It made me so mad.
okay, with the exception of maybe like Fred or George, because Fred and George are obviously just like the smartest people on earth.
Yeah.
Who would have been better for you? Who would you have liked to have come with you? Like, they're not any worse off than anyone else. Neville, in fact, has been doing incredibly well in the DA.
Especially since Christmas.
Lessons.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So, I don't know. I just was like, that was a little shitty. Is it just because she's trying to make it feel like they're this like ragtag squad? Like, I was like, I didn't need that.
But also, I don't need you to say it because I already know that they are a ragtag squad. I have read 5 books. I know what's going on.
They're just a ragtag squad simply for the fact of they're a bunch of 6 kids about to go face like Lord Voldemort.
Right.
So,
Goofy.
So then once again, they're like, okay, well, we need to figure out how we're going to get, I think Harry says like, well, we just need to figure out how we're going to get there in the first place. To which once again, Luna points out they're going to fly, obviously, just very matter-of-factly. And then Ron loses it a little bit. And he's like, look, maybe you can fly without a broom, but we can't. We can't fly, okay? And then Luna's like, you don't need a broom, or like you don't need to fly on your own because there's Thestrals right there. Because what does she say exactly? She's like, because they're here, or something like that.
I think she says they're because they're here. Or we can use them or something like that.
Oh, yeah. There are other ways of flying than with broomsticks, said Luna serenely. I suppose we're going to ride on the back of a khaki snorkel or whatever it is, Ron grumbled. And then she says that can't fly. And then she
That's
says,
funny.
But they can, and Hagrid says they're very good at finding places their riders are looking for. To which Harry whirls around, obviously sees the Thestrals, but unfortunately there's only 2 of them. So the 2 people that can see Thestrals, as we remember, are just Luna and Harry. So
Yikes.
Ron, I love that Ron's like, are those those weird like horsey things that you can only see if you've snuffed it? Like while he's like looking at nothing. Like I love that. He's like, none of them have any idea like what to look for, which is so funny if you're the person that can see them.
Yeah.
So like your friend is just like, I think that's such a funny image. Like even though it's an emergency situation.
Yeah.
It's so funny. So there's 2 of them. And then there's this funny bit. Just love Luna. Luna always comes through for the jokes without meaning to. Like she's just funny without meaning to.
Yeah.
She was like, so it's Harry's like, oh, there's 2. They're like, okay, well, we need 1 more. Hermione's like, we need 1 more because there's 3 of us. And then Ginny's like, oh, no, we need 4. And then Luna says, I believe there's 6 of us, actually. It's just so funny. So then I think it was Ginny who was like, oh, more will come. Also can't see them. So she's like looking off into the distance.
Yeah.
But then because Harry and Hermione are covered in blood and they love like red meat basically and blood, the Thestrals are all being summoned to this spot. So Harry has this idea at first where he's like, oh no, I'm sorry. This is before they come, so I don't really need to mention that. At first, Harry was going to tell Hermione to stay behind to attract more Thestrals because I think there's like some urgency. But because the other Thestrals appear and there's enough for everyone to basically get to the ministry, the argument is stopped. And he's like, okay, fine. Like, just pick a Thestral and get on because we need to go. Which I guess, sure, I believe that with the urgency that Harry's like, we don't have time for this.
Yeah.
And that's the end of the chapter. She's a real quick one.
She's a quick girl. You wouldn't know it from the length of the episode recording, but she is a quick chapter.
Well, we talked a lot before.
We did. All right. Well, that wraps up this chapter. Next week, we'll be reading chapter 4 called The Department of Mysteries. You can find the podcast on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, or wherever you find your podcasts, as well as video versions on the Ampliverse YouTube channel and on Spotify. As always, don't forget to rate, review, and subscribe so that we can get a perfect Newt score. 5 stars only, or else centaurs will carry you off into the Forbidden Forest to do God only knows what with you.
Don't want that.
Don't forget to follow us on Twitter and Instagram at HPAnxious or YouTube and TikTok at The Ampliverse. We are hosted on Spotify for podcasters, so thank you to them, and are a proud member of The Ampliverse. Please check them out at theampliverse.com. Thank you, Ari.
Thank you, Adam.
And as always, grap.
Grap.